The gunshot still echoed in Eliza Foster's ears as she ran through the darkening cemetery, her white wedding dress catching on tombstones and tearing at the hem. Freedom tasted like dust and fear, but anything was better than the life she'd narrowly escaped. The year was 1875, and Durango, Colorado was supposed to have been a fresh start. Instead, it had become a nightmare when Vernon Blackstone, a man 30 years her senior with a reputation for cruelty, had decided she would be his bride whether she consented or not. She couldn't have gotten far. A gruff voice bellowed in the distance. Eliza's heart hammered against her ribs as she ducked behind a large stone angel. The cemetery sat on the outskirts of town, bordered by scrubland that eventually gave way to forest and mountains. If she could just make it to the trees, perhaps she'd have a chance. Clutching the small Derringer pistol she'd stolen from Vernon's desk, the same one she'd fired into the ceiling before escaping through the window, Eliza tried to calm her ragged breathing. The wedding ceremony had been forced upon her, with Vernon's men holding her father at gunpoint. When the preacher had asked if she would take Vernon as her husband, she'd answered yes, knowing her refusal meant her father's death. But she hadn't counted on Vernon's brutal celebration plans afterward. When he dragged her upstairs and torn at her dress, something primal had awakened in her. She'd managed to reach his desk drawer, grab the pistol, and fire. Now her father was likely dead anyway. She'd heard another shot as she fled the house, and Vernon's men were hunting her like a wounded deer. The cemetery seemed a cruel irony. Was this to be her final resting place too? Check the graveyard, Vernon's voice carried on the evening air. She's a superstitious little thing, probably hiding among the dead. Eliza pressed herself against the cold stone of the angel, praying its wings would shield her from sight. The full moon betrayed her with its brightness, casting long shadows across the cemetery grounds. She heard footsteps crunching on gravel coming closer. She gripped the Derringer tighter. One bullet left. She wouldn't let Vernon take her alive. 300 yards away, Adam Garrett pulled his horse to a stop at the sound of distant shouting. He'd been riding back to his ranch after delivering cattle to the rail yard when he'd heard the commotion. Durango was usually quiet after sunset, especially this far from the saloons. Adam was 26, with 5 years of hard ranching behind him and a reputation as a fair man who minded his own business. But something about the angry voices carried on the wind made him uneasy. Turning his horse toward the disturbance, he approached cautiously, staying in the shadows of the cottonwood trees that lined the road. The cemetery came into view, and with it, the sight of several men with lanterns spreading out among the gravestones. Adam recognized Vernon Blackstone, the cattle baron who'd been buying up smaller ranches and driving folks out of the territory. There were rumors about Blackstone's methods, none of them good. "Find her," Blackstone bellowed at his men. "She can't have gone far in that dress." Adam's jaw tightened. He'd heard Blackstone was set to marry today some Eastern girl whose father had fallen into debt. The gossip at the general store suggested it wasn't a love match, but rather Blackstone claiming payment in the most dishonorable way. Moving silently, Adam dismounted and tethered his horse to a tree. Years of hunting had taught him to move without making a sound, and he slipped into the cemetery through a break in the wrought iron fence. Eliza heard someone approaching. Heavy boots on soft earth, too close for comfort. She looked desperately for somewhere else to hide, but leaving the protection of the angel statue would expose her to the moonlight. She held her breath. "Boss, think I found something," a voice called from nearby. "Bit of white fabric on this stone here." Eliza glanced down. A piece of her dress had snagged on a tombstone she'd passed. Her stomach dropped. "Good," Vernon's voice replied. "Circle around, she's close." Panic rising, Eliza made a decision. She'd have to run for the trees. Gathering the remnants of her tattered dress, she prepared to bolt. A strong hand suddenly covered her mouth from behind. "Don't scream," a deep voice whispered in her ear. "I'm not with them." Eliza's body went rigid with terror. The derringer was still in her hand and she tried to bring it up, but the stranger's other hand caught her wrist. "Easy now," he murmured. "I'm trying to help." She managed to turn her head slightly. In the moonlight, she could make out a young man's face, nothing like Vernon's weathered cruelty. His eyes were kind, concerned. Still, she'd learned not to trust easily. "I need to get out of here," she whispered when he cautiously removed his hand from her mouth. "My horse is beyond the fence," he replied, "but we're surrounded. We need a distraction." As if on cue, a shout came from the far side of the cemetery. "Got movement in the trees." The men's attention shifted, lanterns bobbing as they moved toward the distant tree line. "Now," the stranger said, taking her hand. Together they crouched low, moving swiftly between gravestones. Eliza's heart threatened to burst from her chest as they reached the fence. The man helped her over, his movements efficient but gentle. "I'm Adam," he said as they rushed to his waiting horse. "Adam Garrett." "Eliza Foster," she replied automatically, then winced at her carelessness in giving her real name. Adam lifted her onto his horse, then swung up behind her. "Hold tight," he instructed and spurred the animal forward. They'd barely made it 20 yards when a shout went up. There, by the east fence, a gunshot cracked through the night air, whistling past them. Adam urged his horse faster, and Eliza clung to the saddle horn as they raced away from the cemetery. The pounding hooves matched her heartbeat as they tore down the road before veering suddenly into a thick stand of trees. "They'll follow the road first," Adam explained, guiding his horse expertly through the woodland. "Gives us a head start." "Why are you helping me?" Eliza asked, her voice shaking. "Because any woman running from Vernon Blackstone in a torn wedding dress probably has good reason," Adam replied grimly. "The man's a snake. He was forcing me to marry him," Eliza said. "My father owed him money," and her voice broke. "He's probably killed my father by now." Adam's arm tightened briefly around her waist, a gesture of comfort, not possession. "We don't know that for certain. First, let's get you somewhere safe." They rode for what seemed like hours, the horse picking its way through increasingly rugged terrain. Eliza's exhaustion began to overwhelm her fear, and she found herself leaning back against Adam's chest. Despite her situation, there was something solid and reassuring about him. "My ranch is just beyond that ridge," Adam finally said. "It's not much, but Blackstone's men won't think to look there." "Not right away, at least." As they crested the hill, Eliza could make out a small cabin with a barn and corral beside it. A single light glowed in the window. "My foreman, Frank, will be up," Adam explained. "He's been with me since I started the ranch. We can trust him." Trust. Such a fragile concept. Eliza had trusted her father's promise that moving west would give them a better life after her mother's death. She'd trusted that the law would protect her from men like Vernon. Both illusions had been shattered. Yet something about Adam Garrett made her want to believe again. They approached the cabin cautiously, and Adam whistled a distinctive pattern. The door opened, revealing an older man with a weathered face and kind eyes. "Adam, wasn't expecting you back tonight," Frank said, then noticed Eliza. His expression registered surprise but no judgment. "Seems you've had an eventful ride." "Blackstone's men are searching for Miss Foster," Adam explained as he helped Eliza dismount. "She needs sanctuary," Frank nodded, stepping aside to let them enter. "Then she's come to the right place. Blackstone's been a thorn in our side long enough." Inside, the cabin was simple but clean. A fire crackled in the stone hearth, casting warm light across rough-hewn furniture. Frank busied himself pouring coffee while Adam found a blanket to wrap around Eliza's shoulders. "You'll be safe here tonight," Adam assured her, guiding her to a chair by the fire. "Tomorrow we can figure out next steps." Eliza sank into the seat gratefully. "I can't thank you enough, but I won't bring trouble to your door." "By morning by morning, Blackstone will have men watching every road out of the county," Frank interrupted, handing her a steaming mug. "Trust me, miss. I've known Vernon Blackstone for 15 years. He doesn't let go of what he considers his property." "I'm not his property," Eliza said fiercely. Adam's eyes met hers and something passed between them: respect, understanding. No, madam, you certainly are not, but Frank's right about one thing: running now would be dangerous. Exhaustion finally overcame Eliza, and she found herself struggling to keep her eyes open. The events of the day, her forced wedding, the escape, the terrifying flight through the cemetery, all crashed over her like a wave. "There's a small room in the back," Adam said gently. "It's not much, but you can rest there," Frank nodded. "I'll keep watch tonight. If anyone comes sniffing around, they'll get a warm welcome from my shotgun." Eliza allowed Adam to lead her to the back room. It was sparsely furnished with a narrow bed, a small table with a basin, and a chest for clothing. But after the horrors of the day, it looked like paradise. "Thank you," she whispered, suddenly overwhelmed with gratitude. Adam paused in the doorway. "Get some rest, Miss Foster. You're safe here." As he turned to leave, Eliza called out softly, "Mr. Garrett, what will happen when Blackstone discovers where I am?" Adam's expression grew serious. "I'm hoping it won't come to that, but if it does, you should know that my ranch hands and I don't take kindly to bullies. Now try to sleep." When he closed the door behind him, Eliza sank onto the bed. Despite her exhaustion, sleep eluded her. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Vernon's leering face, felt his rough hands. And beyond that, worry for her father gnawed at her. Had he survived Vernon's rage, or was she truly alone now? Dawn broke with pink fingers of light stretching across the sky. Eliza had finally fallen into a troubled sleep, only to be awakened by soft voices outside her door. "Should check Blackstone's place," Frank was saying. "See if her father's alive." "And risk tipping off Blackstone that we have her," Adam replied. "Too dangerous. We need to find out more first." Eliza rose quietly, straightening her ruined wedding dress as best she could. When she opened the door, both men turned to look at her. "Morning, Miss Foster," Frank said kindly. "Coffee's hot if you're of a mind." "Thank you," she replied, accepting a mug. The warmth between her palms was comforting. "I heard you talking about my father." Adam and Frank exchanged glances. "We need information," Adam said carefully. "About Blackstone's movements and whether your father survived. I have a friend in town who might help." "What about the sheriff?" Eliza asked. Frank snorted. "Sheriff Davis, he's deep in Blackstone's pocket. No help there." "My friend runs the newspaper," Adam explained. "James has been documenting Blackstone's misdeeds for years, trying to build a case against him. He has sources." Hope flickered in Eliza's chest. "If my father's alive, Blackstone might use him to draw me out." Adam nodded grimly. "That's what I'm afraid of, but we won't let that happen." A sudden pounding at the door made them all freeze. Frank reached for his shotgun while Adam motioned for Eliza to return to the back room. "Garrett, open up," a voice called. Adam's shoulders relaxed slightly. "It's just Ned," he told Frank, who lowered his weapon. When Adam opened the door, a young ranch hand stood there, breathing hard. "Riders coming, boss. 6 of them, armed, Blackstone's men by the look of it." Adam's expression hardened. "How long?" 10 minutes, maybe less. Turning to Eliza, Adam made a quick decision. "The root cellar. It's our best option." He led her outside, staying close to the cabin wall to avoid being seen from the ridge. Behind the cabin was a small door set into the ground. Adam pulled them open, revealing a narrow ladder descending into darkness. "It's not ideal," he apologized, "but they won't find you here." Eliza gathered her torn skirts and began climbing down. The cellar was cool and smelled of earth and stored vegetables. A single lantern hung from a hook. "Stay quiet," Adam instructed. "No matter what you hear. I'll come for you when it's safe." As the doors closed above her, Eliza felt claustrophobia threatening to overwhelm her. She lit the lantern with shaking hands, its soft glow revealing shelves of preserved food and a small bench against one wall. Sitting down, she wrapped her arms around herself and waited. Above ground, Adam returned to the cabin just as Frank was distributing rifles to the 3 ranch hands who'd emerged from the bunkhouse. "Remember," Adam told them, "we don't start anything, but we finish it if necessary." The riders appeared on the ridge, silhouetted against the morning sky. Vernon Blackstone rode at their head, his bulk unmistakable even at a distance. They approached slowly, deliberately, a show of force meant to intimidate. Adam stepped onto the porch, rifle held casually but ready. Frank flanked him on one side, Ned on the other. "Garrett," Blackstone called as they reached the yard. "Fine morning for a visit, wouldn't you say? What brings you to my property, Blackstone?" Adam replied evenly. Vernon smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "I seem to have misplaced something that belongs to me. A bride, pretty little thing, might have passed this way." "Haven't seen any brides around here," Adam said. "Just cattle and horses." "Now that's strange," Blackstone said, dismounting with a grunt. "Because my men tracked someone on horseback from town straight to your ridge last night." Adam shrugged. "That was me. Had business in Durango yesterday." "Business that took you near the cemetery," Blackstone's eyes narrowed, "where my bride was last seen." "I passed the cemetery going to and from town," Adam replied. "Nothing unusual about that. Now, if you don't mind, we've got work to do." Blackstone's face darkened. "I think I'll have a look around if you don't mind." "I do mind," Adam said firmly. "This is private property." The tension in the air was palpable. Blackstone's men had spread out, hands hovering near their weapons. Adam's ranch hands held their ground, equally ready. "You're making a mistake, Garrett," Blackstone growled. "That girl is mine by law. We spoke our vows yesterday." "Vows taken at gunpoint aren't legal in any territory I know of," Adam responded, his voice cold. "Now I suggest you leave. You're trespassing." For a long moment, it seemed the situation would explode into violence. Then Blackstone gave a mirthless laugh. "Have it your way for now. But know this, I will find her, and when I do, anyone who helped her will pay dearly." He turned back to his horse. "Oh, and if you do happen to see my bride, tell her that her father still breathes. For now." As Blackstone and his men rode away, Frank spat on the ground. "That man's a rattlesnake." "At least we know her father's alive," Adam said grimly. "But for how long is the question." In the root cellar, Eliza had pressed her ear to the doors, straining to hear the conversation above. Her father was alive. Relief flooded through her, quickly followed by renewed fear. Vernon was using him as bait, just as she'd feared. When the cellar doors finally opened, sunlight blinded her momentarily. Adam's silhouette appeared against the bright sky, his hand extended to help her up. "You heard?" he asked as she emerged, blinking in the light. She nodded. "My father's alive, but for how long if I don't even think about surrendering yourself," Adam said firmly, his hand still holding hers. "That's exactly what Blackstone wants." "But what choice do I have?" Eliza asked, desperation in her voice. Adam's gaze was steady. "We'll find another way, I promise." Over the next few days, a tense routine developed. Eliza remained hidden at the ranch, helping with cooking and mending to keep her mind occupied. Adam had loaned her some clothes, pants, and shirts from his younger days, which were more practical than her ruined wedding dress. She'd been surprised at how liberating it felt to move freely, without skirts catching on everything. Adam rode into town daily, gathering information through his newspaper friend James. Blackstone had posted men at every road out of the county and was offering a reward for information about Eliza's whereabouts. Her father was being held at Blackstone's ranch, reportedly injured but alive. As for Adam, Eliza found herself drawn to him more each day. He was nothing like the men she'd known back east. There was no pretense with him, no hidden agenda. When he looked at her, she felt seen for who she truly was, not as property to be claimed. On the fifth evening, Adam returned from town with a determined expression. "I have news," he told Eliza as they sat on the porch, watching the sunset paint the mountains gold and crimson. "What is it?" she asked, heart racing. "James found a witness, one of Blackstone's former ranch hands who saw him kill a man 2 years ago. The territorial marshal has been building a case against Blackstone for months, but they needed evidence." Hope sparked in Eliza's chest. "So they can arrest him?" Adam nodded. "The marshal's been notified. He's riding in from Santa Fe, should be here in 2 days." He hesitated. "But there's more. Your father managed to get a message out through one of the kitchen staff. Blackstone's planning to move him tomorrow, somewhere more remote. Eliza's hands trembled. Then we're out of time. Not necessarily, Adam replied, his voice low. I have a plan, but it's risky. As he outlined his idea, Eliza felt both terror and determination rising within her. It was dangerous, potentially deadly, but it might be their only chance. You don't have to do this, she told him. You've already risked so much for a stranger. Adam's eyes met hers. You're not a stranger anymore, Eliza. The simple statement carried weight, and something unspoken passed between them. In less than a week, this man had become more important to her than she could have imagined possible. The thought of him in danger because of her was unbearable. There must be another way, she whispered. If there is, I can't see it, Adam replied. Blackstone won't stop looking for you, and now he's moving your father. This might be our only chance to free you both. Reluctantly, Eliza nodded. Then we do it, together. Dawn broke cold and clear the next morning. Eliza stood in Adam's bedroom, tying her hair back with a leather cord. She'd slept little, her mind churning with their dangerous plan. A soft knock at the door preceded Adam's entrance. He carried something wrapped in cloth. I thought you might want this, he said, unwrapping the bundle to reveal a revolver. It's smaller than mine, easier to handle. Eliza took it carefully. The weight felt both strange and familiar in her hand. I've never fired one before, not properly anyway. Let's hope you won't need to, Adam said, but just in case. He showed her how to load and fire it, his hands guiding hers with gentle precision. The lessons continued outside, where she practiced aiming at bottles set on the corral fence. By mid-morning, they were ready. Frank and two other ranch hands would create a distraction at Blackstone's main gate, while Adam and Eliza approached from the rear of the property, near the small cabin where her father was reportedly being held. As they rode out, the mountains loomed ahead, silent witnesses to their desperate gambit. Eliza's heart thundered in her chest, but her hands were steady on the reins. No matter what happens, Adam said as they approached Blackstone's land, stay close to me. Eliza nodded, unable to speak past the knot in her throat. This man beside her had become her anchor in a storm-tossed sea. If they survived this day, she wanted a chance to explore the feelings growing between them. But first, they had to face Vernon Blackstone one last time. They left their horses hidden in a stand of pines and approached on foot. In the distance, they heard shouting. Frank's distraction was working. Blackstone's men were running toward the main gate, leaving the rear of the property vulnerable. Moving swiftly across open ground, they reached the cabin undetected. Adam peered through a dirty window, then motioned to Eliza. One guard inside with your father, he whispered. Follow my lead. Adam knocked on the door, then stepped to one side out of view. When the guard opened it, Adam struck swiftly, knocking the man unconscious with the butt of his revolver. Inside, Thomas Foster lay on a cot, his face bruised, one arm splinted. Father, Eliza rushed to his side. Eliza, Thomas's voice was weak. My God, child, what are you doing here? It's too dangerous. We're getting you out, she said firmly, helping him to his feet. Adam bound the unconscious guard and took his weapons. Can you walk, sir? Thomas nodded grimly. Slowly, but yes, Blackstone broke my arm, not my legs. They made it halfway back to the trees when a shout went up. There, by the south cabin, gunfire erupted, bullets kicking up dirt at their feet. Adam pushed Eliza and her father toward cover while drawing his own weapon. Keep going, he yelled, returning fire. Get to the horses. Heart in her throat, Eliza helped her father forward, glancing back to see Adam providing covering fire. 3 of Blackstone's men were advancing, and beyond them, Vernon himself appeared on horseback, rage contorting his features. They reached the trees just as Adam joined them, breathing hard. They're right behind us, he warned, helping Thomas onto one of the horses. You two ride, I'll hold them off. No, Eliza protested. I won't leave you. This isn't a debate, Adam said firmly, but his eyes softened as they met hers. I'll be right behind you. Before she could argue further, a bullet splintered the tree beside them. Adam shoved her toward her horse. Go, torn between safety and staying with Adam, Eliza made a split-second decision. She helped her father mount, then turned back. "What are you doing?" Adam demanded. "What you taught me," she replied, drawing the revolver he'd given her. "Standing my ground." A grudging smile touched his lips. "Stubborn woman." Together they took positions behind trees as Blackstone and his men approached. The first man entered the clearing and Adam's shot dropped him with a wound to the leg. Eliza fired at the second, missing but forcing him to take cover. For several tense minutes they exchanged gunfire, neither side gaining advantage. Then Blackstone's voice rang out. "Enough of this, Foster. I know you can hear me, your daughter for your life. That was our deal." "There was no deal," Eliza shouted back. "You forced me." "Semantics, my dear." Blackstone's voice oozed contempt. "You're my wife now before God and man. Come out or watch your cowboy friend die slowly." Adam touched Eliza's arm. "He's trying to draw us out. Stay put." But the standoff couldn't last forever. Eventually, Blackstone would bring more men, surrounding them completely. Suddenly, the distant sound of galloping hooves broke the tense silence. Many riders approaching fast. "Boss." One of Blackstone's men called out in alarm. Riders coming, lots of them, through the trees. Eliza glimpsed a group of mounted men thundering toward them. At their head rode Frank, alongside a stern-faced man wearing a marshal's badge. "Blackstone," the marshal shouted as they approached. "You're surrounded. Throw down your weapons." For a moment, it seemed Vernon would resist. Then, seeing himself outnumbered, he slowly lowered his gun. "This isn't over," he snarled as the marshal's men disarmed him. "Oh, I think it is," the marshal replied. "Vernon Blackstone, you're under arrest for the murder of Jacob Collins, kidnapping, and a list of other charges long enough to hang you twice over." As Blackstone was led away in handcuffs, Eliza sagged against Adam in relief. It was over, finally over. "How?" she asked Frank as he dismounted beside them. "James got word to the marshal sooner than expected," Frank explained. "Good thing too, by the look of it." Adam's arm slipped around Eliza's waist, steadying her. "Are you all right?" She nodded, suddenly overwhelmed by everything: the danger, the relief, and most of all, the man beside her who'd risked everything for her. "My father is safe," Adam assured her. "One of the marshal's men is taking him to town to the doctor." As the adrenaline of the confrontation faded, Eliza found herself trembling. Adam's arms encircled her, strong and protective. "It's over now," he murmured against her hair. "You're free, free." The word resonated through her, free from Vernon, free from fear. But in that moment, surrounded by Adam's warmth, she realized freedom wasn't what she wanted most. She wanted to stay. 2 months later, Eliza stood on the porch of Adam's ranch house, their ranch house now, watching the sunset paint the mountains in fiery hues. Her father had recovered from his injuries and was building a new life in Durango, working with James at the newspaper. Vernon Blackstone's trial had been swift, justice served at last for his many crimes. The forced marriage had been declared null and void, as it had never been consummated and had been conducted under duress. And Eliza. She had found something she never expected in the aftermath of terror: a home, a purpose, and a love that had grown stronger each day. Warm arms wrapped around her from behind, and she leaned back against Adam's solid chest. "What are you thinking about, Mrs. Garrett?" he asked, his voice low in her ear. The name still sent a thrill through her. Their wedding 2 weeks ago had been small but joyous, a true celebration unlike the mockery Vernon had forced upon her. "I was thinking about the cemetery," she replied, turning in his arms to face him. Adam raised an eyebrow. "That's not the usual romantic reminiscence." Eliza smiled. "It's where our story began. I was hiding among tombstones, certain my life was over." Her hand came up to touch his face. "Then you found me and promised I'd live again." "And have you?" he asked softly. "Lived again?" Instead of answering with words, Eliza rose on tiptoe and pressed her lips to his. The kiss deepened, full of promise and passion and the deep connection they'd forged through danger and healing alike. When they finally parted, both breathless, she whispered against his lips, "I've never been more alive." The sun dipped below the mountain peaks, painting the sky in deepening shades of purple and indigo. But inside their home, light and warmth remained, a beacon against the gathering darkness, just as they had become each other's light in a world that had once seemed only shadow. Eliza had fled a forced marriage and hidden among tombstones, certain her life was over. Instead, she'd found a new beginning in Adam's arms, proof that even in the harshest wilderness, love could bloom like wildflowers after rain, unexpected, resilient, and gloriously alive.